Welcome to The Explainer. So, you've got the keys to your place, you get a mortgage bill every month, you probably even have the sales contract filed away somewhere, but which one of those things actually proves you own it? Well, the answer is probably not what you think. It all comes down to a single, powerful piece of paper.
So what is it? The sales contract? Nope, that's just the promise to sell. The mortgage? Nah, that's the loan agreement. The title insurance? That's your protection plan. The one single document that legally transfers ownership from one person to another, the one that says this is now yours, is something called a deed.
Right, the deed. This thing isn't just a piece of legalese, it is the absolute star of the show. It's the legal instrument that makes the whole system of buying and selling property even possible. So let's dive in to how it really works.
Think of it like this. A sales contract is the promise to do something. The deed is the action itself. It's not just a fancy receipt for a house. It is the official, legally binding document that moves the title, the actual ownership, from the seller's name into the buyer's name. It is quite literally the final word.
Okay, now here's where it gets really interesting. Not all deeds are created equal. It's kind of like when you buy a used car. You can get one with a full warranty, a limited warranty, or you can buy it as is, with absolutely no promises at all. Well, deeds work in a very similar way.
The two big players you're going to hear about are the grant deed and the quitclaim deed. A grant deed is your full warranty option. The seller is making two huge promises. First, that they haven't already sold the place to somebody else, and second, that the property is free of any debts or claims that they created. It even has this really cool feature called after-acquired title, which means if the seller somehow gets an even better claim to the property after selling it to you, that better claim automatically transfers to you. A quitclaim deed, on the other hand, it offers zero promises. I mean, none, not.
And this quote just says it all, doesn't it? The person signing a quitclaim deed is basically saying, whatever piece of this property I might own, which could be everything or it could be absolutely nothing, I'm now giving it to you. You see these used a lot to clear up title issues or in divorces when one person just needs to get their name off the property. It's the ultimate buyer beware document in the entire real estate world.
All right, so that's how you transfer property, plain and simple. But let's be real. Most of us aren't buying a house with a briefcase full of cash. We get a loan. And the moment a loan enters the picture, a whole new cast of characters and documents shows up to the party.
When a loan's involved, we often use what's called a deed of trust. It creates this little three-party drama. You, the borrower, are the truster. The bank, the lender, they're the beneficiary because, they benefit when you pay them back. And then you have the trustee, who's a neutral third party, usually a title company. Their job is to just hold on to the legal title until the loan is all paid up.
So here's how that whole life cycle plays out. First, you sign the trust deed, which gives that trustee temporary hold on the legal title as security. Then, for the next 15, 30 years, you make your payments.
Then comes the glorious day you make that final payment. Hallelujah! The lender tells the trustee that debt is clear.
And finally, the trustee signs a reconveyance deed, which transfers the full clear title back to you. That is the piece of paper that proves you own your home, free and clear. It's a huge, huge moment. So far, we've talked about voluntary transfers, where everyone's on board. But sometimes, property changes hands when the owner doesn't want it to, or through documents that are just broken. And this is where things can get a little complicated and honestly, a little dramatic.
For instance, if a property goes into foreclosure and gets sold at auction to pay off a court judgment, the winning bidder gets a sheriff's deed. But just like a quitclaim deed, it comes with zero warranties. You are only getting whatever title the sheriff was able to legally seize, which could have all sorts of other problems attached to it.
It's a similar story if someone stops paying their property taxes. The government can sell the property to get the money they're owed, and the buyer gets a tax deed. And here's the key thing to remember. It only gives you the title the old defaulting taxpayer had, warts and all. It can be a high-risk, high-reward game for sure.
Now, let's pivot for a second. It's one thing for the reason for a transfer to be a problem, like a foreclosure. But what happens when the deed itself is the problem? What if the very document that's supposed to prove ownership is just flat out invalid?
Okay, this is a really critical difference. A void deed versus a voidable one. A void deed is a complete nothing. It was never legal to begin with. The classic example is a forged deed. It passes zero title, even to an innocent person who buys the property later. A voidable deed is different.
It looks valid on the surface, but there's a hidden flaw. Like maybe it was signed under threat or because of fraud. It can pass title, but that title is shaky because a court can step in and cancel the whole thing.
All right, we've covered the normal, the financial, and the messy. So to wrap things up, let's get into some of the most unusual and frankly coolest ways that property can change hands, ways that have nothing to do with buying or selling.
First off, you can just give property away. A gift deed transfers ownership for what the law calls love and affection. But there is a big catch. You can't use a gift deed as a trick to hide your assets from people you owe money to. If giving away your house makes you unable to pay your debts, a court can actually reverse the gift.
Then you have eminent domain. This is the government's power to take private property for a public purpose, like building a new highway or a park. But, and this is a huge but, the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution guarantees that if the government does this, they absolutely have to pay the owner fair market value for the property.
So what happens when someone dies without a will and with no living relatives to be found anywhere? Does the property just sit there forever? Nope. Through a process called escheat, the title eventually goes to the state. The state basically becomes the owner of last resort. But that brings us to the most legendary, the most misunderstood method of all. Is it actually possible to gain ownership of a property just by using it without anyone's permission? Well, the answer is yes, but it is incredibly, incredibly hard to do.
This is called adverse possession, and to pull it off, you have to clear 6 massive legal hurdles. You have to physically be there, and you have to do it openly, no hiding. Your claim has to be hostile, which just means it's without the owner's permission. You have to claim it as your own, and you have to do it all continuously for 5 straight years. And then, the kicker. The biggest hurdle of all, you have to pay all the property taxes on that land for all 5 of those years. So the bottom line is, this isn't some easy squatters' rights loophole. It's an extreme and very rare legal situation.
From grant deeds with warranties to foreclosures, from simple family gifts to the government taking land, the journey of a property's title is often a really complex story. It's a chain of documents stretching back through time, each one telling a piece of the tale. It kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What's the story written on the deeds to your home?